Welcome to Healing Your Families. This is Emmylou Penrod, and I help you as a parent go from frustration, stress, and overwhelm to calm, confidence, and joy so you can achieve the quality of family life that you desire. So this month we've been talking about education, what we can learn. And I am so honored to have a guest who can tell us about mindset. And I think in life and in parenting, having that mindset is absolutely critical, that positive, the right mindset. So I would like to welcome Lesley Bradshaw. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
And I love that we have Zoom and we can meet people all over the world. Lesley and I met through a networking group. Tell us how did you become a mindset coach?
Oh, so this is my whole story, right?
Yes, the stories are so fascinating. I notice you also have a background in psychology and human resources. And my experience has been anyone with a background in human resources knows a lot about human nature.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. So I actually got into psychology because I got pregnant when I was like 19 years old. I was about to go study graphic design, actually, of all things. I was going to go to Fort Lauderdale to study. Of course, okay, you can hear I have an accent. I am from Trinidad, and the island of Trinidad and Tobago. So I was going to go to Fort Lauderdale to study the graphic design, and then I got pregnant, so I stayed here in Trinidad. And of course, my mom is like, well, you still have to study something. You have to get a degree. You have to get educated. And I just thought, well, psychology looked like something that seemed easy enough. That is how I fell into psychology. The great thing about it is that I actually loved it when I got into it. So maybe it was divine intervention, I think. And I went through life, I got married because I had the kid. And of course, that never works out when you get married, when you're forced to a marriage. We got divorced, and I kept going through life wondering, like, okay, where is my space? What am I supposed to do? Like, who am I besides being my daughter's mom and my mom's daughter and my brother's sister, who is Lesley, right? And I tried to find myself in everything external to me. So, I did all the partying and all the drinking and, all the other things. I never did drugs, but I did, all these things, just trying to find who I was. And all those things, of course, made me feel even more alone, more empty, until I found self-help. I started with self-help books. The first self-help book I read was actually Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And it just kind of sparked something like, okay, I kind of see where I can improve myself a little bit. And it was like going through that, looking at YouTube videos. And then one day I was actually working in retail because I got remarried and I was actually a stay-at-home mom. And my friend asked me, can you help me out in my retail store? I said, okay, sure. I had some extra time to help her out. And I made friends with this girl, and she was going through a point in her life where she had to decide where she wanted her life to go. So her family was pushing her towards business, but her passion was in culinary arts. So I helped her to, be able to create those boundaries with her family and figure out how she can go after her passion. And she said to me, well, you should be a life coach. And of course, I had no idea what a life coach was. I thought it was something that rich Hollywood people had because it was fashionable. And I did my research and I found out, okay, it's actually a legitimate thing. And my brother found a certification for me to do. So I went to Miami, I did the certification, and that was in March of 2020. And we all know by the end of March of 2020, the entire world shut down. So
And that changed everything.
that changed everything. So that is kind of how I got into being a life coach. And, this has been my pandemic baby, as I like to say. I grew my business as a life coach throughout the pandemic. Yep, and here we are.
Awesome. Yes. All right. So as a life coach, what have you learned about mindset?
It forms the basis for every single thing that we do. Our thoughts inform our feelings, and that is what informs our actions. It's as simple as that. Whatever you're thinking is going to have an impact on how you feel. So for example, if you're thinking, I'm a great mom, you're going to feel great, right? You're going to be like, yeah, I got this. And you're going to act a specific way. You'll take your kids out, you'll do stuff. If you're telling yourself, oh, I'm a bad mom, that's immediately going to change the feeling that you have. You're going to feel like dejected, you're going to feel like unworthy, and then you start acting like trying to figure out life. Like, okay, how can I be a good mom again because I'm such a bad mom? And your actions will change depending on how you think. And that's it, simply put.
Now that's interesting because I know a lot of mothers in trying to, and what they think will help them be more effective, are thinking of, well, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to improve? But that actually, as you were saying, starts a downward spiral then.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That we think and we tell ourselves that, okay, we need to fix the problem. But what if the problem is thinking that we have a problem?
Yeah.
Right? You don't have a problem. You have a situation, you have a circumstance that may not be ideal, but when you focus, it's not about like ignoring that negative things or negative circumstances are happening, but if you focus solely on that, that's all you're going to see. And that's how you're always going to be reacting to trying to fix this negative thing instead of embracing that, okay, this is happening. I can control myself, my response, how I think about it. You can't always control whatever the circumstances. I mean, COVID showed us that we couldn't control, we can't control the virus, right? But we can control how we react to the virus.
Yes.
How we think about it, how we interface with it. And then, oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That, being aware of what we can control and what is out of our control.
Yeah. So, and just focus on, okay, what is working? Like one of the things that I have my clients go through is evaluate all the situations. Okay, what worked in this situation? And always start with what worked, because our mind is designed to go to the negative, which is why we're always trying to fix the problem. But when you kind of force it to look at, okay, what did work? And you actually kind of sit with it, because initially it's going to tell you nothing worked, everything was bad. But that's not true. Like, don't believe the initials. Okay, but something had to have worked. What worked? And then you slowly start realizing, okay, well, this worked out this way. And, I was okay with this. And that will force you to kind of look at, okay, it's not the dire situation that I was thinking it was. Yes, there may be things that you can improve on, you fix, and that's why you do the evaluation. What worked? Then you do what didn't work, and then what would you do differently next time? And you try and you pivot.
I love that, evaluation is good. It's healthy, but
Mhm.
start with what is going well.
Yeah.
I've observed that it's human nature. We can go through the day and do 20 things just perfectly spot on, well done. We make one mistake. And what are we dwelling on as we
Yeah.
end the day?
Yeah. We're dwelling on, oh my gosh, this this thing that we did wrong or didn't go the way that we expected it to. And we think that the entire day has failed because of this one 5, 10, 15 minute moment, even if it's an hour or so, like that was just a bad hour. It's not a bad day, it's not a bad life.
Well, how much more productive then? Because of course we always want to improve and do better, but to start that evaluation with what is going well. I love that. That's so powerful. So
Yeah.
what are some other ways that we can change our mindset when we find that we're getting into the negative end?
I like to slow down and actually allow yourself to feel whatever negative feelings that are coming up for you. Because a lot of the times what we do, we try to bulldoze over those feelings or get back to feeling positive because we're telling ourselves that, oh, if you're feeling these negative emotions, something must be wrong. But it's not that something is wrong. Those negative emotions are there to tell you, to give you a message that maybe somewhere you're not loving yourself enough. Somewhere you need to pay a little bit more attention to. They're there to give you a message. They're not there to tell you that you're a bad person. So I like to slow down and just allow myself to feel the negative emotion. Like feel the sensation, focus on the emotion alone, not the thoughts that come with it, but the emotion alone, the sensation. Where is it? It's like when I feel anxiety, it feels like um, tingling all over my body. So that's how that's how you get a better connection with yourself, a better relationship with yourself. So sometimes we don't know why we're feeling upset about something. But if you're able to have that connection and okay, I'm feeling the tingles, that means I'm anxious about something. What did I experience that would have had me anxious? So you can even work backwards. If you don't know what the thought is or the thoughts are, you can work backward from the feeling. And that is why we talk about like getting connected to yourself, to your body, to the sensations, so you can kind of understand, okay, I'm reacting this way. And then because it takes about, I think it's 39 seconds for the actual sensation to process through your body. So all the time we're like, oh, I'm trying to avoid feeling this, so let me do over here. Give yourself 39 seconds to process the emotion. And then we can go and evaluate, like, okay, what's coming up? Why am I feeling this way? Why was I triggered by this event? And show yourself compassion for what comes up, because I call myself a recovering self-bully, because the work I did with my own personal coach showed me that I found every way in the book to put myself down. And your mind is very clever. When you catch on to it, it finds a different way to do the same thing. So
I love that term, self-bully.
yeah.
And I'm remembering when my children were young, I distrusted my emotions. I remember honestly, seriously saying, I wish I could just have my emotions surgically removed. They just get in the way. They cause me problems. And I
Yeah.
think I spent too much time and energy stuffing them, repressing them, denying them. But what you're saying would have helped me so
Yes,
much more. And I can't even say, I wish I would have known you then because you hadn't even been born then. But this idea now
yeah,
that emotions teach us, I love that.
yeah. That's their purpose. They're there to tell you something. But we live in this society that is so hyper focused on being these overachievers, and then to be an overachiever, you have to be this happy, upbeat, Susie cream cheese type of person. And that is unrealistic. It's not realistic at all.
And I think women, especially, we really do this to ourselves. We really feel like we have to look perfect. We have to have a completely clean and orderly home. Our
Yeah,
children need to be clean and spotless, and we need to
yeah.
make homemade bread and be active in the community and hold down a full-time job. We really do bully ourselves.
Yeah, it stems from, of course, the societal values throughout the ages, where the woman would have traditionally been this homemaker, and especially when we come like into the 1950s, after the war, and everyone is trying to get back to being really traditional, and you have the women dressed in their nice stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love like wearing hats, I love all those the nice dresses and stuff, but it's the ideas behind the the interactions. Like, okay, you have to have your home spotless because people will think less of you if it's not. And no, your home is lived in. If
It's
your
just,
home is spotless every single day, I would be worried. Are you standing in one spot all day? Like,
well, and what about the children?
the children, what are the children doing, right?
Well, and I remember coming to the conclusion that I would rather have a relaxed, peaceful atmosphere in the home
Yes,
than a spotless home. If I had to pick between them, I
yes,
would rather have that calm feeling.
absolutely. Because when you're so involved in like, oh, it has to be spotless, we have to have like this 10-course meal that we're fixing, and you get agitated very easily. And when you have that heightened emotion, you're snapping at your kids, you're snapping at your partner, because you're like, oh, heaven forbid they put the cup out of place. It's not going to look well. The aesthetic is thrown off, and you in turn are completely thrown off because you're making me look bad. But it's not true, is it?
No, no. So I think that it sounds like what you're saying is it would be very helpful for women to take some time for self-reflection and
Yeah,
ask themselves honestly, am I bullying myself? Am I placing unrealistic expectations on myself?
absolutely. Absolutely. Like the whole long to-do list of things, of chores that you think you have to do. It's like you said, if the dishes stay in the sink for a day or two, nobody is going to die. Nothing serious, nothing grave is going to happen. It, I'm pretty sure those aren't the only dishes you have. I mean, if they are, then wash them and use them. But if they're not, you have other dishes. You can leave or even if you don't want to cook, you know, get a microwave meal. Or it's I actually made a post about this like about a month ago, where my daughter, my 8-year-old, she wanted to make cookies, and I was not about to make cookies from scratch. So I bought the little Betty Crocker cookie mix, and my mind was like, this is not a good mother. A good mother doesn't just buy the Betty Crocker mix and mix it.
But a
This is not
smart mother does.
a smart mother does, right? But you know what? I realized my kid did not care whether they were from scratch or they were Betty Crocker, or heck, even if we went for a drive to the bakery to buy some. she's like, I got to spend time with mommy making cookies. And that was the most amazing thing for her.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
we're the ones telling ourselves that we have to do it bigger and better. And they're like, yay, cookies.
Yes, I remember a time when I actually got different colored, dishes, plates, glass cups for my children, and just
Yeah.
kind of, okay, these are your dishes.
Yeah.
Clean them before the next meal, and it helped me through a hectic time
Yeah.
when I was feeling overwhelmed. And they're learning skills they need to be a successful adult.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That people seem to think that, you have to do everything. No, like you said, your kids are going to like become adults someday. It's okay for them to start learning to like wash their own dish and, take out the garbage. Of course, everything age appropriate, make their bed. It's not harming them to just tell them, hey, you want to eat, you got to clean your plate,
And that could be one of the unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves as mothers, feeling that we must do everything for our children, when in fact it wouldn't benefit them if we did
No,
everything for them.
because then they grow up, and I remember seeing someone, a clip of someone on Dr. Phil, and she was 18 years old, I believe, and she's like, my mother only gives me $1,000 a month. I don't know how to live on $1,000 a month. What? Wait, what are you doing at 18? Still living in your mother's house, by the way. Why do you need more than $1,000?
Interesting how trying to live up to unrealistic expectations were actually enabling, raising
Yeah,
entitled children. We're not helping
yeah,
them. I want
exactly.
to get back to what you were saying about emotions.
Hmm.
Now, do you have exercises that would help your clients learn? I think that's something, it's not taught in school.
Yeah.
If you don't see your parents doing it,
Mhm.
I think for some of us, our learning about our emotions is strange new territory.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It is. And when you first start doing it, you're going to see the self-bullying come up, because your mind is going to be like, oh, you're doing this wrong. Or it's going to be like, okay, what you're wasting a lot of time just sitting around doing nothing, because it would feel to you like sitting around doing nothing, because you're used to, okay, I'm feeling upset, let me go look at a movie, or go get something to eat, or let me go do something to get rid of this negative feeling. But what you have to actually do is sit still and feel. Like, close your eyes and focus your attention in on the sensation, and your mind is going to keep going and tell you you're wasting time, and then you thank you, brain, for trying to keep me safe, but right now this is what I need to do. And it's a process of learning to, like I said, embrace the emotion, but also learning to have your own back. Show yourself compassion. Ask, like, you actually have to make friends with those emotions. They don't get to drive the car, but they get to come along with you, because we're so used to leaving them out and being like bye and running away from them. But they serve a purpose. They get to come along for the drive.
Well, they could be the fuel running the
They
car.
can be the fuel. They can sit in the back. They just don't get to drive the car, because when they're driving the car, that's when we go and we jump to conclusions, and we do all the things, and we're trying, like, especially as mothers, we would be like, okay, I need to go. That's where we start at midnight. Let's go make bread. Let's go make homemade bread, and let's go make sure that when the kids wake up in the morning, they have this pancakes, and they have all the things, and we're trying to overcompensate for the feeling that we have, when all we really need to do is just sit with the feeling and allow it its voice.
You know, a lot of times when an incident comes up, when a child misbehaves or something happens, parents feel like I have to respond to that right now. But that isn't true. Quite often, they're much more effective if they take time. It's perfectly, if you're in a heated altercation with your child, sometimes the best thing to do is to say, let's finish this later. And I think that's also teaching your children how to manage their emotions.
Absolutely, because when you're in that heated space, your whole nervous system is feeling like it's being attacked. So you go into a fight, flight, or freeze. A lot of the times in those altercations, we're fighting, right? And we say things that we don't want to say, or we do things. Some people, depending on your level of control, you lash out. Your kids may lash out at you, and that is because we're in this reactionary state. We were trying to just figure out, our mind and our bodies are trying to figure out, okay, I'm feeling attacked right now. How can I act to counteract what I'm feeling? And that's how we end up just like reacting, and we lash out and we say things, because we're actually trying to dissipate the feeling that we are having, that heightened feeling that we're having. But like you said, if we take the step back, you said, you know what, right now I'm in a space where I will not be able to have a calm, rational discussion with you. Let's take an hour or 2 hours, however long you may need, go to our neutral corners, process our emotions, and then come back and have a healthy discussion about what has transpired.
And emotions are not to be feared.
No.
They can teach us. I understand, sometimes they can teach us that something needs to be changed.
Yeah.
They can, they really have great value.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. This is so, and we're not doing our best parenting when we're reacting, as you described.
No, not at all.
Or most
that's when you do the things that you get the regret after, and then so on top of having to process the emotions of whatever that caused the initial heightened emotion, now you have to process the regret also. So you're doubling up on what you have to do for yourself to get out of that negative space.
And you end up hurting the people you love the most.
Yes.
I think that's what hurts the most.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Lesley, this is wonderful. Now, in the time we have left, please tell, it sounds like you have a lot to offer your clients. So how do they contact you?
There are multiple avenues to contact me. The most direct avenue would be on Instagram. That's where I check the most. So my Instagram handle is at Lesley Bradshaw LC for life coach. You can also find me on on LinkedIn, Lesley Bradshaw. I have a website, lesleybradshaw.com. I made it really simple.
You made it easy. So they just need to remember Lesley Bradshaw.
Yeah. Google it and it will come up. And if you want to email, Lesley@lesleybradshaw.com. Like, really simple.
Wonderful. Lesley, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And I love what you're doing. Like I said, I think this is something every parent should know.
Absolutely.
They'll be much more effective.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank our viewers who've joined us. Please come back again next week at the same time as we continue this series on education. As we're sending our children back to school, we need to educate ourselves as well. And I encourage people to go to my website, healingyourfamilies.com. I have some free resources that will help parents, and I'm always open for a 30-minute discovery call. You can ask any specific questions you have. Thrilled to help. So, Lesley, thanks again.
Thank you.
And until next week, love yourself, love your family. We're making the world a better place by strengthening families. This is Emily Penrod at healingyourfamilies.com.